Welcome to the Massacre Matinee.
Hey guys, before this episode starts, I just wanted to take a chance to thank everybody because we've reached 100 plays, over 100 plays now, and we've reached 50 unique listeners, so we are going to be making stickers.
911. I just shot my husband because he just beat me up. You shot your husband? Yes, I'm at 1802 South Tremont. Who's crying in the background? My daughter. Okay, what's your name? My name is Sally McNeil. Sally!
I'm sorry. I just shot my husband. I need you to come pick me up.
Well,
Whoa.
Will.
Jesus.
That's the story today. Welcome back to the matinee with Mingus and Panda and guest star Faith, who needs to pick an animal because we need an animal.
Oh shoot.
Pick an animal. You have until the end of this episode to pick an animal.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a heavy start. That's a whole lot of heaviness.
So I'm going to tell you the story about Sally McNeil back in 1995. I decided to call this Murder Muscles because, well, that's part of why I decided, because it's funny. I kill things with humor, I guess. Yeah, that's staying in. No, that's staying in.
I feel like I'm gonna be so giggly today. I had a little bit of medical emergency, and I'm still a bit woozy from it. So
little bit, and yet here you are, committed to true crime. I'm gonna tell you today about Sally McNeil. She was a former Marine Corps sergeant, actually, and she turned bodybuilder. Sally was always really kind of small. Like, I'm 5'3.5". Technically, but I tell everybody I'm 5'4". She was only 5'3", and yeah, and she ends up actually doing pretty well in bodybuilding. But rather than doing what a lot of studies do, where they just kind of talk about the murder and then give the history, I kind of wanted to start with the history because I really feel like it helps you understand the situation in a way that a lot of the media didn't come out with on this. When it comes to actually reporting on this case, a lot of the media was pretty negative about it, and they actually did end up regretting a lot of what they said in regards to this case. But the big main thing that I'll tell you is that Sally McNeil shot and killed her husband, Ray McNeil, also a bodybuilder, and she shot and killed him on Valentine's Day, 1995. We just listened to the 911 call. I'm going to start out with a little bit of her history so it makes a little bit more sense on why she reacts some of the ways that she does, because I really feel like her upbringing made a huge impact on why she made the decisions that she made here. And it wasn't really portrayed nicely, even in the documentary that I watched. I watched the Killer Sally documentary on Netflix. It was pretty solid. They got a lot of interviews, but it was also, I mean, it tried to stay unbiased, but it really shows how biased the actual trial kind of was.
What was it, 77 minutes, that one? That, documentary? How it was
like that style of documentary?
No, like how it was just like, oh, we're not biased, but it was like really
Highly
against
biased.
the police kind of thing.
Yeah, in a way. So, Sally was actually, her parents divorced when she was young. She was like 3, I think, when her mom remarried, and her stepdad was kind of okay at first when it was just her being there, but it's like as soon as his own kids were born, he was just, boom, total asshole. Like, my kids are the best fucking thing in the world.
Oh God, don't you just like when people do that?
Yeah, so she was physically and verbally abused a lot by her stepdad just because he had that you're inferior kind of complex, and mom didn't really stop it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And drinking was, I guess, to a certain degree, a big part of things, and that did end up changing for them later, but she just didn't have a really good upbringing in that regard. So she always kind of wanted to find something to just be really good at so that they'd be proud of her. Like, I mean, I can totally get that.
Oh, yeah,
I had middle child syndrome. I had to do something to stand out, so I kind of get that. So she ended up starting in like sports and stuff, and she got really good at like diving and running and just generally a good athlete. And it got to a point where she was just doing like weightlifting to get better at these sports to like help improve herself. And later on, she ended up deciding she wanted to go to college to become a gym teacher because she thought it was just really cool. And I can't say I blame her. It'd be cool as hell to be a gym teacher running around in fucking shorts all day and just basically playing games
Watching
all
kids
day.
getting fucking pelted in the face playing dodgeball.
I mean,
like,
that that'd be primo. Like, who needs cable?
And I'm sure being able to help other kids probably healed a part of herself, maybe too.
Maybe,
Yeah.
you know, maybe she figured that
Giving-
she would have been able to find that kid that was dealing with the same situation and give them the advice she never got, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which-
Sounds like she should have just stuck with that.
Well,
But I don't think she did.
that's where a bit of the problem is last semester of her last year in college, it was basically her senior year in college. Excuse me.
Keep it.
I'm gonna keep that just for you, Faith. I've decided your animal is frog.
There's a gypsy.
So it'll be Mingus, Panda, and the Frog. She went to college to become a gym teacher. She didn't get to finish because she ran out of money at literally the last semester of college. She ran out of money and she couldn't get any money. So she was like, well, I guess there goes that chance, so I'm just going to join the Marine Corps. Because why not? I mean, 5'3", joined the Marine Corps in the well, actually, that would have been in the 80s that she joined the Marine Corps. So, yeah, total badass move right there.
Like
I gotta
some
say,
G.I.
like,
Jane.
yeah, exactly. Like,
Fuck being a gym teacher. Guess I'll go be a fucking Marine.
yeah, like,
Totally the same. Yeah.
but that's just it, though.
Tommy logic.
She thrived on that challenge. She loved the challenge of keeping up with the men when, you know, and she had done the weight training and stuff to work on her
Life was a
athletics.
challenge, it sounds like.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
and
thrives
she
under it.
had done the weightlifting to keep up with the sports and everything. So she was already miles ahead of the standards that were set in basic training. Like, I don't know what the standards were for women in the 80s, but from what she said in the documentary, she was pulling off like 60 pull-ups. Like, it was nothing. Like, I can't get one.
Yeah.
I hit my
I
boobs.
can't even try.
I hit my boobs on the bar and I fall back down. Like,
My boobs don't even get near the bar.
you know, I probably can't do that anymore. I don't know when the last time I tried a pull-up is.
I already know
I
I
might
couldn't. I'd
strain
probably
something.
dislocate my shoulder
Yeah.
trying.
Speaking of, I'm just gonna slip our snack in there real quick. So, you can only participate in 50% of our snack today.
Yay.
Because
Thank you.
it's called Murder Muscles, and our snack today is protein and push-ups. And I don't want to have to deal with the dislocated shoulder in my living room,
Don't
so
worry, it pops itself back in.
I don't want to experience that.
No, you don't, because the sound
the
is
last
horrendous.
the last like 45 minutes of the podcast would be just me puking.
When I was being, I'll give some context so people know. When I was being, birthed, they had to dislocate
When you were
my
being yeeted into the world.
Yeah, they had to dislocate my shoulder to get it out, but to get me out.
Just that.
And they never put it back in right. So now if I do a push up, it like completely
Pops
dislocates and then like grinds back into place. And you can hear it grinding.
I'm looking back and forth between your shoulders, and you can actually kind of like tell which one's your strong hand and which one's not.
It's just funny that it's my dominant arm too. So it's like
That's
sucks. If I wear it too tight of a
You know, you'd
bra-
think if they had a choice, they probably would have dislocated the left one because you would have been least likely to be left-handed.
yeah.
I don't know. And then my dad just told me to be put back in because I wasn't done cooking because I was supposed to be a boy. So
It tends to
gonna
happen.
sneak a little bit of
Yeah.
trauma. in
Brian
there.
asked all the way through if she was gonna be a boy.
Well, my mom got one ultrasound, and it was like, it's a boy, but I was just playing with my umbilical cord, I guess.
So was Jaden. They thought she was a boy. I had to get rescheduled 3 times to get pictures of her.
Yeah. Well, my mom was pregnant in like 99 into 2000. Well, in 2000.
They were basically Polaroids.
Yeah, you just got one, and that was it.
Good luck. Also, it's blurry as shit. Enjoy. So, she was totally down for that challenge of keeping up with the men. and she thrived at it. She was catching people's attention. She was always like ahead of the pack when they were running because she had done the track and everything all through school. So she was just above and beyond, physically a model Marine, and they were totally stoked with it. She was doing like a weightlifting club and stuff that was like, I don't know if it was really a club, but I guess there was weightlifting situations going on with the Marine that she participated in. It's highly technical research I've done here. I want you to understand.
If there's one that Tommy needs to listen to.
Bet Tommy's gonna listen to it and be like, no, that's technically correct.
Couldn't give any more detail than that.
As a result of everything with the Marine, she met her first husband, Tony, also a soldier. I believe he was also a Marine. I would imagine so. And so they ended up moving in together on base. 1982, they got married. And from that, she had 2 kids, Shantina and John. Met Tony in 1982. That was Shantina and John's dad. They ended up moving in together, but like immediately after the wedding, Tony was just being a total dickhead. He was being abusive. And at this point, I mean, it had happened all Sally's life, so she was just like, well, this is normal. This is how people treat people, I suppose.
That's sad.
Kate's making faces. Yep. You need to stop looking at pictures. You're gonna spoil it for yourself.
No, I just looked up her body building pictures, but
it screams 80s.
Yeah.
That is 80s.
Stop looking up pictures.
That is her doing the splits over a tank, just for context.
Yes. Yeah.
She had a fun time in the military. All right.
So, actually, that was a little bit later, but we'll talk about that. So, Tony became totally abusive after the wedding, started beating on her, and Sally thought it was normal, but there's actually military police reports of them getting called out to the house so many times
Like
for this.
or
Yeah, for the domestic assaults, that it backed up that it was a really, like, well known that it was not a good relationship. So they stuck it out for 5 years before they filed for divorce.
Ooh.
And when they filed for divorce, they were living, forgot where the fuck they were living, I'll be honest with you, but ultimately I believe Sally was from Pennsylvania, but I believe they were living on a military base somewhere together. So probably. I don't know if it
so much
I don't know if it was
stationing.
in Pennsylvania or not that their military base was at, but they ended up moving to Camp Pendleton in California. Well, Sally and the kids moved to Camp Pendleton, California in 1987, and the divorce actually finalized in May of 87, and she actually met Ray like just a little bit after that.
Oh wow, wasted no time.
Well, she met him. She didn't necessarily start getting involved with him. Because he was also in the military.
Love is love, hey.
She was also in the military, and because she was working on all the weightlifting and everything, back in the 80s, weightlifting for women was, like, not really a thing.
Taboo.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even necessarily taboo, it just, it literally did not quite exist.
Yeah, there was also a stopping point with it. You didn't get, like, how bodybuilders today get to where it's like super fucking defined. Like they just kind of got like, look, I have muscles, and you can kind of like see them more defined, and then they just kind of stopped.
Well, this is around the point where steroids were very much a thing. And this I believe Arnie was big in the 80s, Lou Ferrigno was big in the 80s, little old for some people, but I know that other people also will know about, Arnie for Terminator and Lou Ferrigno for the original live action Hulk. When it was just painted green.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus the Governor of California for Arnie. Yeah.
I'm a nerd, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, the steroids were a very real thing, so women were experimenting with those a bit too, but they didn't really have like categories in the same way that men have categories. Like they're checking for this shape, they're checking for that shape, but they also were like, well, we need to show some like femininity. Like if you haven't seen a video of some of these old like bodybuilding performances, like look them up sometime or watch the documentary, solid documentary. seems a little bit. It tried to be unbiased, but it just kind of showed how biased the trial ended up being, I guess, or at least it seemed biased in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they were doing like jumping around and like laying on the floor and like it was really, women's bodybuilding was super bizarre in the beginning because they just didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and the judges are sitting there talking,
dancing on the stage.
Yes.
Look at my muscles.
well, exactly, and the judges are sitting there and they're asking the guy that literally started the whole thing. They're like, so
What are we looking for?
what are we looking for? Like, what? How are we supposed to be scoring this?
Them, yeah.
Yeah, it was still like it was in its baby stages, so it was.
So little baby.
Yeah, and this was with the steroids up and coming. The women were experimenting with steroids too, and if you've seen some terrifying bodybuilder women with the super square jacked jaws, like there's women that have
do
done.
what you want to do, but I just I
But-
can't.
But it all depended on what steroids you took. Those
Yeah.
women were likely taking testosterone and other things like that, but there were other steroids available at the time that wouldn't fuck with your hormones in the same way, I guess. Because Sally did end up getting into one type of steroid that it did not have the testosterone, so it didn't do the square jaw and the deep voice and all that kind of stuff. Which, I mean, I guess, fine, but you're still putting some fucked up stuff in your body, like... So, she actually, earlier in that year, before the divorce was finalized, Valentine's Day, 1987, February 14th, 1987, that was actually her first bodybuilding contest, and that was where she met Ray, before the divorce was even quite finalized.
It was like an end process kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. It was already established, but I mean...
Separated. It's
Getting a
You're waiting
divorce
on
takes
paper
time.
at that
It takes time. I believe in most places there's a set amount of time between when the paperwork's filed and when it can even get scheduled to get
to a hearing.
Yeah.
to a hearing and everything. Like mine took like 6.5 months.
Yeah, and that sounds even quick in some cases. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 6 months is quick.
Yeah.
Compared to some.
So
she meets Ray.
she met Ray Valentine's Day at that first bodybuilding contest. She was already doing the weightlifting when she was in the Marine Corps, and she met Ray here because it was a military hosted competition. It was like bodybuilders of the military, I guess, and they were each like representing branches. So
The Navy's just all scrawny.
right,
Sorry.
right. So she had actually met him back in February before the divorce was official or anything, which I totally understand. Like you said, they're separated, so what does it matter? So they were already talking at that point, and from what she said, it wasn't necessarily love at first sight, but it was lust at first sight. The thing about Sally, and I say this just in the interest of the fact that this is a voice podcast and I don't have any beautiful graphics to show you, but Sally has an interest in chocolate. The kid's dad was a black man. Ray was a black man. The man that she ends up with after all of this is also a black man. She's got her preferences, okay? She knows what she likes. I'm not judging her at all, but like,
Interested in chocolate.
I wanted to see if I could get a laugh with that. It worked. So
Anything's gonna make me laugh right now.
you're making it so easy for me. I'm a raging success. So, but Sally moved quick, and Ray moved quick because he's like, hey, like, she can lift too. That's pretty cool. Like, we can be super sexy, weightlifting, body muscles, awesome couple.
And it's also the 80s, too.
And it's
So I
also
feel
the
like
80s.
Everyone moved quick.
And
back
it,
then.
yeah,
It's
and
just
so they met in February. The divorce finalized in May. They got married in June.
oh, wow. That's
Shit.
really quick. Wow.
They're like,
Yeah.
honey, I got the
80s
paperwork in. It's finalized. They head down to the courthouse.
Now, some of her history does
Did she even
move.
get a dress?
I don't know if she would have fit a dress at that point. I mean, she
Good
would,
point. Okay, continue.
no, she actually. I do
She-Hulk out of
believe.
it.
I do believe she did have a dress in the documentary. I think they showed a little bit of the wedding
That's a
video.
short amount of time to plan a
Because
wedding.
as a couple, they liked to video They love making these
I mean,
videos.
they were bodybuilders, so I mean, they like to,
so
they're
they'd
very
set
comfortable
up
with their body and like to show
and they
that
do
off.
their flexes and show it to people and see how their muscles look so they know what they need to work on kind of thing. Stop looking things
I
up.
looked up the wedding dress and it makes sense because it doesn't.
It's sleeveless.
You know what it looks like?
That makes sense.
It looks like what dentists in like the old times how they had like the high collar.
Yeah,
it looks
so
like an old dentist.
It was a very
like
very
a dentist
modest
mixed with a preacher.
It was a very modest dress that she chose to wear, and this was still
thick.
early. He is a
massive.
So she's 5'3". Looking at that picture, he was probably like 5'5", 5'6". He was kind of a small guy himself.
Probably 5'6".
He was kind of a small guy himself, but he was thick, and he was cut. He was cut. He had look up Ray McNeil bodybuilding. He was a specimen of man, let me tell you. But he definitely had a lot of
this is
help.
There you go. Have this
from-
picture of him in a purple Speedo.
Oh, wow.
He was cut.
There's some definition
He was
there.
a thick
Yeah.
boy. So
That's a defined piece of chocolate.
I hate to interrupt, but like when
a defined
when
piece
really
of chocolate.
like I know that they want you to be like really tan for it, so then you can like
And
see
they did-
the definition and all that kind of stuff. But when they like also oil them, I'm like fried chicken.
I couldn't do that job because I would just have the impulse to lick them.
Honestly,
I'm sorry.
Are you talking about the oiling them up?
Mm-hmm.
So
Like the chicken comment, like I just like I know it would taste
the
like
daughter,
chicken, but like
the daughter Shantina, and I
I'm
I
a
want to
weirdo.
say that Sally would oil up Ray, but Shantina would oftentimes help oil up her mom. So I guess Ray wouldn't even really help her all that much. I don't know.
I feel like that would be like a really good opportunity to be like, yay, let me just feel
okay,
you
my
up
comment
and
was
oil
non-sexual. Non-sexual. In my impulse comment.
So they got married. I believe it was in June of '87. She brought the kids along, and
I hope.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really hope so.
yeah.
Be like, no,
she-
fuck you.
She did bring
What's
the
the
kids
80s?
with her. Now, her timeline's going to go a little bit quick from here. Partly because things happen a little bit quick, and partly because, to a certain degree, some stuff wasn't as important.
Yeah.
So, in 1990, as a couple, they won the Armed Forces Bodybuilding Championship.
Wow.
During this time, they were still in the military together. They were still doing the weightlifting and the bodybuilding and everything, and that was just kind of like a extracurricular that they did for the
Was
military.
he in the
So
Marines
busy.
too, or was he?
I
like,
don't
Army, or
remember
did they
if
not
he was
really-
Marines or Army. I didn't really look
I would assume they're
super
probably
into that
like-
aspect of things. I just know that they met through the military and through...
I would probably assume he would also be
bodybuilding.
a Marine, so then they would be with each other. Well, I guess the Army is usually with the Marines.
They can
too.
still kind of get
Overlap.
set on,
Commingle,
yeah, commingle. So, 1990, they won that championship together as husband and wife. And in 91, he decided, I'm done with the core. I want to bodybuild full time. And he was using steroids during this because it was a lot more popular of a
It
thing.
wasn't regulated back then either.
It wasn't necessarily legal,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't against the rules.
Yeah.
I think there just weren't
Yeah,
any
so I meant like
rules
the
about it.
the competitions didn't regulate it, but
So Sally would later on end up driving to Tijuana to smuggle steroids back to Ray after a while because she was able to go down there to the pharmacias and just get steroids and come back with them, and she'd smuggle them back in the car. Sometimes she'd have the kids with her.
Oh, wow.
And she was not proud of that. And
honey,
that
come do my drug runs with me.
that came across
Did she just get them ice
hugely
cream on
and-
the way?
little snack.
Kids, if you don't tell the border
ice cream
patrol
with
that
your
I'm
trunk.
gonna have steroids, I'll get you a candy bar.
Ooh. So, a lot of the times Ray was trying to force Sally to quit bodybuilding, even though she was doing pretty good at it. It was still a fairly new sport.
So he went from like
But-
we're supportive, we're gonna be this power couple to I want to be the only one doing it.
Well, he was using 5 different types of steroids at one point. I don't know if he was using that many different types.
Unless he just wanted her
That
to be
early
smuggling
on,
them the whole
but-
time.
That's what he
The
wanted. Was
spy.
he just wanted her to work and make money to get him more steroids.
Mm.
Just more and more and more. And she was like, no, like, I like the bodybuilding. It's something I enjoy. It's something I want to do. Like, I'm having fun with this. Let me just fucking have this.
Yeah.
And she did another contest, and at a women's contest, she was actually approached to do something called wrestling videos, which is where the splits on the tank comes into play.
Are these suggestive videos?
It's basically softcore porn, but with no sex and no nudity.
Okay, so suggestive soft
So-
porn.
Ray was okay with it because he's like, money.
It's basically, yeah, it's just like burlesque
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. Where it's just like the burlesque photos
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, so at first she was just being one of the characters in one of the videos, and this guy was recording them and editing them and doing all the other stuff, and
Hey, if that's
she-
her choice, that's
and
awesome.
she'd get her
If
cut.
she's-
but
it's
she
not like
realized
there's nothing wrong with that.
But she realized I can make more money if
Oh,
I just
yeah.
make the videos myself. So I'm gonna make the videos myself. So you can actually see in the documentary they show some of these clips. One of them is her at the military base with some gear on and a gun in her hand, saying, "Hi, I'm Sally McNeil, and here's a phone number you can call if you wanna get wrestled by me. I'll wrestle you." And it was crazy because a lot of the people that were going for this were people that were normally in control all the time,
Oh my god, they're
businessmen.
like, I want.
They're like,
what
I
is
want
it?
a dominant mommy.
Wasn't it a
like-
dominatrix or whatever?
Yeah, basically.
I need
And
to ask Tommy if this is allowed.
I'm not sure.
I don't think. Can you
Tommy, you're in the car. There are people.
continue? I'm fully supporting of her videos and her career, but while at the base
Again, it was
with
like
her
the
gun,
early
Well,
like
I-
80s and
Okay.
90s. So I guess
Yeah,
again,
so
less
this-
regulation.
Yeah.
It
Well,
did-
I mean, they were
It
regulated.
did kind
but
of
it was like-
happen in a relatively
around
quick
watching her, I guess,
succession
maybe.
because by 93 she left the Corps. She wasn't in the Marines anymore, and she became what I am dubbing, you're gonna like this, a muscle prostitute.
I love that. I
muscle
love that.
prostitute.
So
That can
She
entail
would-
so many different
she
things.
would not have any nudity. She would not have any sex. She would, however, a lot of the times be in like those 90s bikinis where it's
The high
like high rise and
You're
it's all
barely
hip and-
covering anything. Like you make one room move, a lip's fucking coming out.
Exactly. Bulging with muscles. And she would just wrestle these guys and just wrap her legs around their head and crush them like a watermelon. And
Hey, you know what? If a big strong woman came and told me, "Hey, I'll crush your head with like a watermelon," I'd be like, "Thank you, thank you for
yes,
blessing me."
please. She's making $300 an hour doing this.
Oh wow, back then.
Yeah.
Well, when was this? The
90s. Early 90s.
Convert it.
I'm converting that. 'cause that's
So
a
this
lot.
was, I was born in 1992. So this was like, I was little bitty baby hellion.
Or
It sounded so sad.
Okay, so it's about like $618.
oh, no.
So
about
it's still
doubled.
doubled in
Yeah.
value. So $300, or in today's money, about $600 an hour to be wrestled. Or
An
to
hour.
wrestle.
An
Yeah, an
hour?
hour.
I thought that was a
That's
No,
month.
an hour.
An
No.
hour? That's-
An hour.
I mean, whew.
And
I
she,
thought you said a month. I was like, oh,
No,
that's
no,
so
no.
nice. An hour?
and she would fly all over the country to do it. And these guys would buy her plane tickets. Where I'm gonna fly you to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to squish my
I was
head
gonna say,
like a
that's
fucking
fucking easy
watermelon. Like,
I was gonna say that's easy money, but then she still has to put in all the work to keep the muscles up and all that kind of stuff. Even with steroids, you still have
true,
to.
but I mean, it was. I mean, some.
She's
I would
doing it
imagine to a
regardless.
certain
Yeah.
degree, it wasn't all necessarily like it could have been on private planes. I'm not sure. It might not have been on commercial planes. So she probably could have just like flown out, wrestled a guy, and flown back.
Came right back.
yeah.
You know, I didn't know. I didn't look into that detail.
Mm-hmm.
But from what Sally said, she claims that she spent $24,000 on Ray and his upkeep in 1993 in the entire year. Now, $24,000 in 1990, if the amount roughly doubles, you could easily say $50,000 in
Yeah.
today's money.
believe it,
I
though.
only make like $24,000 in a year, so I don't know what I make in a year. I don't do that kind of math. Makes my head hurt. What's the official numbers, Kate?
$56,000 dollars and $56 and $133.
Yeah, so a lot. Now, 1993, a very interesting year to a certain degree with them. So, Ray actually qualified for the Mr. Olympia competition. And Mr. Olympia competition's like the big leagues
that's
pro
a big
status.
deal,
This
yeah.
was his break into pro status. And he was a short little feller, like we were saying, probably only like 5'6". He was a thickums, but he was a tiny little guy, and tiny little guys weren't really big in the sport. They wanted people like Arnold Schwarzenegger that were super tall but super big and just like hulking out kind of thing. So a lot of the big guys didn't end up doing well in the competition, and neither did Ray. He got super pissed. He placed 15th, even though he was super well cut, super well defined, doing all the tricks of the trade, pumping all the steroids he could fucking find. Like,
yeah, we should have got my stepdad in this. He was a bodybuilder back then.
Oh, that would have been so
really?
Yeah, up in
Interesting.
Canada though.
We'll have to ask him, and then I can add it on into here.
You'll have to like meet him though, because you can tell that he was a bodybuilder because he's got that like wide fucking shoulders and small hips.
So he placed 15th, and he was pissed. He started getting more ragey. He was on steroids, so roid rage was very much a thing that was probably happening. And he actually became more abusive. He actually had a history of abuse against both Sally and the son, John, as early as 3 days after the wedding.
Wow.
He punched Sally in the face 3 days after their wedding. And at one point in December of 1989, he broke Sally's nose. And the police came, and the kids saw it happen. They watched it happen. And the police came, and they arrested Ray. And then they released him. And then he came home, and he beat the shit out of Sally until she dropped the charges.
Wow.
So that it wouldn't go on his record. So he did have a history of abusing him, or abusing her, sorry. And by 1994, things were just kind of getting worse. And Sally was often getting raped and abused, and friends were trying to convince her to leave, but she wouldn't because she loved him too much. She lusted him too much? I'm not really sure. Because she did say it was lust at first sight. But it really kind of came across
her
as
definition of love just with how she grew up with, oh, he's abusing me, which means he cares for me kind of thing.
It's possible. It's very possible. But they were trying to get her to leave, and she wouldn't. And later on in 1994, a fellow female bodybuilder that Sally actually, I believe she knew personally, was murdered by her boyfriend. Just casually, and it made Sally a lot more fearful of Ray because she was like, well, this is the kind of stuff that he's doing to me, and
really
he was
confronted
already
with the possibility.
he was already oftentimes choking her and making her pass out and then just leaving kind of thing.
Oh, so she had that reality check of, hey, this is
this
dangerous.
is kind of what's happening to me. So she actually talked to the kids and was like, hey, keep a bag packed and ready, we might need to leave to go back to Pennsylvania like real quick fast. And at this point, Sally's parents were, I guess you would say, born again religious. They cleaned themselves up. They were quote unquote better people, which it helps out later on.
Yeah.
So I am going to tell you about the day of the incident. And then after I tell you about the day of the incident, I think we might take a short break. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
So, February 14th, 1995. February 14th is very important in this relationship. So at this point they met.
Ruining Valentine's Day.
They met on February 14th. And let's see.
Didn't she win her first competition on the 14th?
Yep. Her first bodybuilding competition when they met was February 14th of 1987. And then this incident happened, and she actually was quoted in the documentary saying, why does everything happen to me on Valentine's Day? Because a lot of those abuses had happened on Valentine's Day. So this is the incident, and this is Sally's accounting of the incident. And I'm saying that specifically because originally this day, Sally wanted their good friend DJ to be there when Ray got home, so that way there was an extra buffer, yeah, because otherwise it was just the kids, and John was already getting his ass kicked. Yeah. And Shantina was just trying to
stay out of it.
Not be obvious, like, don't look at me, I don't want to get hit.
Yeah.
So she really wanted DJ to be there, and DJ was like, well, I'm kind of hungry, I'm going to run and get some food real quick, I'll come back.
Oh no.
So he ran and get some food real quick, and in that time Ray ended up coming back. But by all accounts, it started out as a normal day.
Mm-hmm.
Everything seemed hunky-dory, except Ray didn't come home in time on Valentine's Day for, like, supper. She wanted to do something for Valentine's Day, and he just didn't show up. And she couldn't figure out where he was, so she's like, well, maybe he's at the club that we always go to. So she goes in the bathroom, she's throwing on her makeup. She's like, I'll get myself dolled up, I'll go down there, and I'll hang out with my man, and we'll have a great Valentine's Day together. As she's in the bathroom, getting her makeup put on, and DJ's gone, getting food, Ray comes home. He's like, what the fuck are you putting makeup on for? Where the hell are you going? Who are you going to meet up with? And she's like, well, I was going to come to the club. I wanted to meet up with you and hang out with you. I've been wondering where you were all day. And he's like, well, I'm home now. Like, I don't know.
Misogynist men.
Yeah.
Kind of. And at some point in this, he just decided
Insecure
to
men.
start cooking chicken because bodybuilder, he's got a, like, protein load.
Oh
and
man, I want
everything. So he's just
bland.
like,
I want
I'm
a
gonna-
bland
He's probably jacked
chicken
up on steroids,
breast.
too.
So he starts cooking chicken and more arguing because why not? And in Sally's account, Ray started choking her. And Shantina actually heard her getting choked from the bedroom, which is not an unfamiliar sound to her, sad enough to say. She was very familiar with what that sounded like. And Sally manages to get away. Now, she ran off to the bedroom to get a sawed-off shotgun that they had in the bedroom for house protection. They also had ammunition in there. And she grabbed the shotgun, and according to her account, she grabbed 2 slugs. Like, actual slugs, not the little BBs. So, doing some damage. So, in her account, according to her initial police interrogation, she came out of the room with a shotgun. She had one loaded into the weapon and one held in the palm of her hand.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked Ray to leave, and he refused and lunged towards her, and according to her account, she pulled the trigger and shot him. In the belly. In the abdomen, whatever. She claims that he lunged again, and she turned her back to try and get away from him, and while her back was turned, she loaded the shotgun, pointed the sawn-off shotgun behind her without looking behind her, and fired again. And this shot actually hit Ray in the jaw, lower mouth jaw area. So, yeah, and once again, it was a slug. Now, I'm not sure if it was from the side. I'm not sure if
Either
it was
way, that jaw's
straight
gone.
on, but either way, that jaw is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yes.
It does not exist anymore.
So, Shantina, upon hearing all of this arguing and then ultimately the shotgun shot, she comes running out of her room with a baseball bat in her hand, thinking that Ray finally killed Sally, and now she's gonna have to like fight for her life because my mom's dead out there.
Poor girl.
Yeah, and Shantina can actually be heard in the background in the 911 call. She was the one that screamed, "Oh, Dad, no." I'm not sure how well you guys heard it from where you were sitting. And there is, in the documentary, there's a longer version of the 911 call where I believe you can actually hear Ray in the background saying, "I don't feel good." Yeah. So, Sally, in all of this, was like, well, I shot him. I killed him. This is a problem, and I don't want the cops to come here and shoot me. So she covered Ray with a blanket so the kids wouldn't have to
look at him,
see that. And at this point, one of her neighbors had come over because he heard the commotion, and she hands the shotgun to him so that she doesn't have the weapon in her hands, and she picks up the phone and she calls the 911, and that was the phone call we heard. "I just shot my husband. He was beating me up." So the police did show up, and paramedics showed up, and Ray was conscious and breathing when the paramedics arrived.
That is kind
surprising.
of really
kind of surprising, yeah, considering he had a slug in his gut and a slug in his face.
Yeah, especially the slug in the face.
The throat,
like,
your jaw area.
That's what's gonna blow your mind here in a second. So the police took the kids. They brought Sally in handcuffs because she admitted to it. So protocol, everything's going fine. Everybody's cooperative.
Do all their work for them.
Right.
Yeah.
All 3 of them were interviewed on camera separately and together. They put the kids together at one point just to help soothe each other, and then later on they actually let all 3 of them be in a room together for a while. Sally did seem like she showed a lot of genuine remorse from what you can see on the interview footage tapes. She was very emotional at the very least, and what the cause of the emotion was, no one can completely determine. It could be happiness that she's not going to have to deal with him anymore.
So
it could
many
be
emotions of like
sad that happened at all. It could be anger that it happened. But she was super emotional, like, actually almost broke my heart a little bit listening to this woman cry. And Ray ended up dying at the hospital. Now, all of this happened on the evening of Valentine's Day. The following morning at 9 a.m., the police told Sally that Ray had died in the hospital. And they actually allowed the kids to go into the room with her, and they let her tell the kids at 9:45. And they were more worried about Sally than they were about the fact that they were just told that Ray died. Which goes to show kind of what kind of...
was, yeah.
Young Shantina actually said he was a bad man. Direct quote, he was a bad man. And it was honestly just really heartbreaking to watch at this point. So heartbreaking, in fact,
very
that...
sad. Not only did Shantine not get a childhood, her mom didn't get a childhood. You know, none of them.
Right, a vicious cycle.
None of them got to be a child, really.
Vicious cycle. It's so heartbreaking that I think we're gonna have to take a short break.
Yeah.
Welcome back from the short break.
Yay.
So we're gonna actually talk about the trial in this one, because the trial is its own 3 pages of my 6 pages of notes. February 15th, 1995 was her first official court appearance. The day after the incident, she had her hearing before the judge and everything like that. And in this is where bail is going to be set. She pled not guilty to murder due to self-defense. Yeah. She was like, yes, I killed him, but it was self-defense.
Yeah,
it was
I didn't
not
want to murder him.
Exactly. Now, the DA that was assigned to this case to prosecute for this case, he's a very firm believer that if it involves murder, it needs a $1 million bail, just outright. It doesn't matter what incited the murder, whatever, $1 million bail because murder. The defense cited the prior spousal abuse, which they had lots of backup for, and was able to get the bail reduced to $100,000. Now, Sally had that wrestling video career, so she had a lot of fans. And a lot of her fanboys actually banded together and posted bail. So, like, 3 to 4 months after she got put in jail following the incident, she was out on bail.
I mean, that's good. She still has 2 kids.
Right. And at this point, it was like, okay,
you know... somebody, but still.
She told the kids, she's like, you guys are going to be going to Pennsylvania probably without me, most definitely without me. They were going to end up going back and staying with her parents.
That's
and
good, though.
They were around for the trial, but they did end up going back to Pennsylvania. So she was in a 1-bedroom apartment out on bail, and the prosecution decided that they were going to base their case on the relationship being mutually violent in the past and not the threat of roid rage. Now, Ray was on 5 different steroids. They tested his blood, including testosterone. They tested his blood after he died and everything, and they also tested Sally's blood. She only had 1 steroid in her blood, and it was non-testosterone, so it was one less likely to cause a roid rage situation. She did have kind of a history of being a little hot-headed and a little quick-fused, but, I mean, she was short. Short bitches be feisty. I can attest to that. So, the police did interviews with mutual friends of the couple and friends of Ray and friends of Sally kind of thing. And these interviews kind of revealed that the abuse was a bit more physically and verbally mutual. A lot of the time, Sally would do a lot of yelling and throwing things around. Ray had a history of choking her, which Shantina attested to. She remembered that happening on more than one occasion. And there was actually, in her Marine service record, there was a record of, she once fought 5 cops that were trying to arrest her.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was like one cop's like, come on, miss, we gotta go. And she's like, fuck you. And she starts fighting him, so 2 more join in, and then 2 more join in kind of situation. Like, crazy strong. Short bitches be feisty. And
I want a shirt that says that.
Right.
Oh, shit, I can make that.
You can make that.
The first shirt you guys need for your podcast.
And according to Sally, a lot of the fights that they ended up having were actually about infidelity. She would often see Ray flirting with other women or going out talking to other people, and she got pissy about it. Anybody would.
Rightfully so.
Anybody would. An example of that is at the Steel Rose competition. It was a women's bodybuilding competition in 1990. She actually walked off the stage and immediately got into a fight with Ray because he was flirting with another competitor. Just like right off the stage.
Right
I think that's the worst thing is when they just blatantly do it right in front of you. And it's
right.
Like, oh my god.
It's already disrespectful, but when you're going to do it right in front of somebody, you really have no respect
just don't
for
fucking
that person.
care.
Exactly.
And that's extra hurtful, I think.
So, February 14th, 1996.
Why?
Oh my god.
As a moment of irony, that was the chosen first public day of the trial when they had the jury and everything.
They did that on purpose.
They did. They probably did, but goddamn, Valentine's Day. So, the defense was going with battered women syndrome. That was what they were saying caused this. She was beaten, she was abused for so long, she was too scared to leave. She fought for her life. That's what caused this situation. And the DA's like, I mean, look at the muscles on this bitch. Like, she's got a history of being violent. She can't be a battered woman. She's too tough to be a battered woman. Even though he was also, like, bigger than she was.
He's also a very strong person. It cancels it out.
But their argument on that is from some of those home videos that they did. Because they did tons of home videos. One of them including, hi, I'm Sally McNeil, and I'm going to pick up Ray on my shoulders and do a squat. And Ray was a huge guy, and she just picks him up and just squats and just holds him, just, I'm so tough kind of thing. And they're like, see, how can someone this strong be a battered woman?
I think back then they didn't look at mental abuse and verbal abuse the way they should have. Because you can still be a battered woman.
You can still be strong as fuck, but if someone's like constantly
breaking
putting you down mentally, then you're not gonna be like, you're gonna think I'm not the devil's advocate to take him over.
Right, exactly. And there were other situations where they were just like holding hands together, and he's like, "Come on, pull me," and she's like pulling as hard as she can. She can't get him to move. Like, just because she can squat the guy doesn't mean that she could really take him on in a fight.
Yeah, just because your legs can take that that weight doesn't mean your fists can put out that equal amount of weight.
Exactly. No, the DA was saying that, you know, he was flirting with other women, so obviously this was jealousy and rage that caused this, and she got pissed off, and she was like, I'm just gonna kill this guy. Fuck this guy. And a lot of the media, like I said at the beginning, all of this was super negative, because it was huge in the media at the time about violent women, and women that were getting arrested for violent acts and for assaults and murders and things like that. It was trending. It was all about the media in that regard. Now, he got shot in the abdomen and he got shot in the jaw. Believe it or not, the autopsy showed that he actually died from blood loss from the abdominal shot. The jaw shot is not what killed him, and he was conscious and bleeding when the paramedics arrived. It wasn't until at the hospital when he bled out from the abdominal wound. Mind-blowing.
Yeah, I'm shocked that he didn't get his arteries punctured.
Right.
Esophagus punctured.
Which...
to be alive and breathing.
Right.
Which leads me to believe that it was a side...
That's what makes me wonder.
And probably skimmed it.
That's what makes me wonder. So, remember that, though. The autopsy said that it was the abdominal wound bleed-out that caused the death. But the forensics did not line up with what Sally was saying. So... Sally had said that she had the one round loaded, the other one in her hand, when she went out to the living room and confronted him and told him to leave. However, the ejected shell from the shotgun was actually found in the bedroom, and that shell will only eject when you pull back and load another situation. So she had to have been in the bedroom when she reloaded, not in the living room, as she said. The other thing that they were able to find forensically was that she claimed that he lunged at her prior to the second shot and she was facing away and shot behind her type of situation. However, when they looked at a lampshade that was in the living room, they found that the blood splatter was actually going up underneath the lampshade. And the only way that the blood splatter would have done that would have been if he was on the floor on his back and she stood over him with the shotgun and fired the shot. Then it would have gone poof up into the sky kind of thing.
I'm still on Sally's team at this moment, but the forensics don't lie.
The forensics don't lie.
And it never looks good when you have a different story.
Correct.
I'm sorry, if you're standing over someone point blank with a sawed-off shotgun, like, that would have killed him. You would
think.
Also, some shotguns, like, unless it was that specific shotgun that, like, because if you rack it forward, it'll do it. Eject the
even if it ejected with
if it's not loaded.
Even if it ejected with distance, there's no way that if she ejected the shotgun shell, even if she ejected it in the living room, there's no way it could have ended up in the bedroom. She had to have been in the bedroom for that.
I'm just saying, like, it didn't have to be loaded to
eject.
But that just means that she was in a different room after she took that first shot.
I'm not sure if it was a single fire situation, because it was a sawn-off shotgun, so it might have been you load one, you eject one, you load one, you eject one kind of situation. I'm not sure if it had a feed tube on the bottom or not.
Yeah, I would have to see the
I
gun.
didn't look super well personally at the shotgun. They did show it a little bit in the documentary. But the DA used this as proof that blood splatter and the fact that the shell was found in the bedroom as proof that the second shot was outright premeditated murder. Now, the problem I'm having with this is they're saying the second shot is premeditated murder, but the autopsy report said he died from the first shot. Regardless of the second shot happening, that's not what killed him.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying, because that second shot wouldn't have been fatal, and if the second shot is what deems it as murder, then...
I mean, at most, what I would say is maybe at the hospital they prioritized the second shot, left the first shot, and then he bled out at most. But
yeah, because they're thinking, well, maybe his neck's all,
But I'm wondering if it might not have been as bad. I'm not sure, because you could hear him in the background in the longer version of the 911 call.
I'm thinking it grazed.
That's what I'm wondering,
if
for sure.
If he's talking, he still has his bottom jaw.
If you're talking, you're breathing.
Right.
That's what they say with choking. If you're making noise, you're breathing.
Exactly.
So if he's making noise, it's not that bad, I would think, It's not like he's gurgling in the background.
Because, she could have just been like, I thought I killed him, and he could have been on the ground and he lunged, and then she could have just been like, shit.
But my thing with that, though, is...
But the way she described it is that
she
lunged
if
forward.
you're going to shoot that second time, is she truly afraid for her life and not guilty?
I feel
when
like...
you're going to stand over him and
I feel like if
if
you take the second shot, then you're not that fearful. You would take the opportunity to run. Grab your kids and go.
And everyone's different if you're actually in the situation, I'm sure. But logically, you would run.
But if she had been
like,
well, I was standing over him and I took a mercy shot because he was like...
But she didn't say that.
Out. Well, I'm saying, like, if she did it, like, they could have been like, that. Well, still...
And that wouldn't surprise me with her military background if that was something that she thought of.
Her psycho... I can see that.
So, the defense countered to the DA with a psych evaluation. They sent her to a psychologist, get evaluated to see kind of what was going on, what could have caused this. And the psych eval was like, well, she's got PTSD from her military service and from this history of abuse, and she does have battered women's syndrome, which is an offshoot of PTSD. It's a form of it. Now, this psychologist testified in court, but the DA was like, well, I mean, it sounds fake, like battered women's syndrome. It doesn't sound like a real thing. If she was really scared, why didn't she just leave? And he tried to make it sound silly, and he tried to victim blame and basically say, well, she could have just left. Why didn't she just leave? He's got a face that makes you want to punch him, too. So...
maybe a baseball bat
would
be good.
So the DA had Ray's friends testify to help, including DJ, the one that was supposed to be there, and a couple of other ones. I didn't really remember their names.
Could you imagine coming back with, like, food and then you just be like,
and there's cops everywhere? Yeah. So they had Ray's friends testify to help, including later on in 2005 when they were doing additional testimonies and things like that. They actually talked to Marianne, who is someone that Ray was talking to on the side. And he felt that he was truly in love with Marianne, and Marianne was his one true love, and this Sally bitch is crazy, and I gotta get away from her, and I don't want to have to raise her kids anymore, and...
It's always the case.
Right. So Marianne was like, well, yeah, Ray was gonna leave Sally. Ray was at my house on Valentine's Day in 1995 before he went home. He wanted to spend it with me. That's why he didn't go home.
He should have just stayed with her and the story would have been happy. He should have.
Hard to say, because how would Sally have reacted?
She would not have been in the situation, though, right?
She would have had an excuse to leave.
Yeah, in a perfect world.
But in that time, in that point in her life, in her mind, Ray was her everything. So...
battered woman.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
But Marianne also revealed that Sally knew about her. And Sally was stalking her. And sitting outside of her house. And calling and threatening her.
I can kind of believe that, though.
I could see that with her bodybuilding and the steroids.
And the military background and all that, yeah, I can see it.
And the fact that she doesn't want to leave, clearly, even though she's...
Right. So the defense only had one real good friend of Sally's that could testify on Sally's behalf. And she was able to testify that, yeah, I mean, she had seen some pretty gruesome injuries. Sally showed up at her house with a broken arm, with a broken nose, bruises all over the place, like, lots of injuries. But Sally's a bodybuilder. She's a tough lady. She doesn't want to be seen as weak, so she didn't want to admit that this was going on to anyone because that would have just been embarrassing. So she told this one friend specifically, a lifelong friend of hers specifically, about what was going on. And that was the only witness they had, because she hid it from everybody else.
I can believe both sides of this. Yeah. It's very hard.
It's difficult. This is a tough one. So, at this point, Shantina was 12 years old, and she was called up to testify what happened.
Not the baby. She's just a baby still.
Now, she was the only eyewitness immediately following the shots, because she ran out right after everything happened, and you need that witness, but
it's just a shame.
But she's 12 years old. Yeah. And she understandably became very emotional, because at this point,
it's her father and her mother.
He had basically helped raise them. I mean, they left.
He might not have been a good man, but that's still.
They left.
Tony.
Thank you. they left Tony like 5 years into that relationship, kind of thing. So those kids were young. He basically raised them.
They were young.
They were calling him Dad, which is why she said, "No, Dad. Oh God, no," on the phone call. She became understandably emotional, and the defense was like, well, we shouldn't have put you on the stand anyway. Can we maybe stop questioning her? She's getting really upset. And Shantina admitted, as an adult, she was pissed that this happened. She's like, I had so much more I could have said. I had so much more I wanted to say about the things that Ray did to my mom and the way that he treated her all the time. Yeah. And John, he was younger. Now, he was not formally interviewed individually, nor was he called to testify, and he was pissed. Because he was also physically abused and verbally abused by Ray. Victim. He was just as much a victim by Ray. And he had so much that he wanted to say about how Ray treated Sally. He was pissed. He described living in the house as pure hell. Just absolute hell. Can't wake up without knowing you're going to be in hell. Yeah. So, we're finally on to the last page. Ooh. Are you ready?
No. I don't know. I'm nervous.
Sally insisted on testifying herself.
Ooh, that's either good or bad.
Yeah, the defense either saves you or that breaks it.
The defense did not want Sally to testify at all.
They usually don't.
At all. Because Sally was former military, and when Sally got under pressure in these situations, very yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, very cold, very emotionless, shuts those emotions off like a switch, and that's not what the defense needed right now. Not at all.
They needed
not by
emotion.
This 5'3" bulked out monster of a lady as the way that the media was portraying it out to be. So she went very, very Marine mode, and the jury was like, well, this bitch doesn't feel bad at all. No. She doesn't feel bad that she killed him. And that definitely was way, way against. And he said flat out that, he was fully expecting her to get first-degree murder charges just after her testimony. Like, immediately after it, he's like, well, that's it. I lost this fucking case.
Yeah.
Just, it's over. And the DA used that to enforce the claim that battered woman syndrome is fake and she doesn't have it. And yeah, all over again. Now, the thing about her wrestling videos is one of her characters was called Killer Sally McNeil. Oh, and it's all characters, and it's hilariously bad acting that leads up to, all right, now I'm gonna squish your face with my thighs and the way like.
Did they really use that against her? Is the fact that
they used the posters for the videos against her, because it's a poster that says Killer Sally McNeil with her face on it and a gun in her hand, smiling away. And they used it to sway the jury's opinions of Sally as a person. Does this look like someone that's a battered woman to you? Kind of situation. Now, the entire time that this trial was going on, she was on bail. She was in a one-bedroom apartment. It was like a studio apartment, I think. And once the kids weren't needed anymore for the trial, they went off to Pennsylvania to live with Grandma and Grandpa. And at this point, they were better people. So things are going well. Mm-hmm. March 19th of 1996, after 3 days of deliberation, the jury came to a verdict. She was found not guilty of the first-degree murder. Bless. Yeah. Not sure how they managed to
Squeak past that.
Yeah,
Like,
especially with how
I
much
bet
the
it was
DA was
probably
fighting
her
to make
kid
her just look like a
testifying.
Well, I feel like if her kid had testified, she probably wouldn't have gotten any. Well, not
Any
as
of those,
not
yeah,
as severe of
serious.
charges.
Mm-hmm.
She was, however,
probably
found
go down
guilty.
manslaughter or something like that.
Right. She was, however, found guilty of the second-degree murder. Because the jury did conclude that prior to her firing the second shot, there was no immediate danger. Like you said, if she was really that scared, she would have just left.
And that's not to victim blame.
That's not at all.
It's just the logical. You would think you would take
Do
that
a
moment
shot,
to
drop it,
flee.
fucking go.
Exactly.
But you never know until you're in that position, and all the things she had in her life that compounded too. So
Exactly. So she was sentenced to 19 years to life. She had 5 parole requests that she made starting in 2011. All of them were denied. And some of the media representatives that actually were really active in that time were in the documentary, and they said flat out they regretted portraying her as a monster the way that they did.
Yeah.
They regretted not going into her backstory and realizing that she had that history of abuse because they made it seem like Killer Sally. Killer Sally. She's
Yeah,
gonna
they just
kill you.
had that
Even
tagline
the
where, like, let's
documentary
run
is
it.
called Killer Sally. So, summer of 2020, she was released.
Oh, wow.
yay.
The first thing that she got was a Big Mac, just right off the bat. Just
Oh,
right
yeah,
off the
girl.
bat.
A woman
Get
of
it.
my own heart.
Yes. And as part of the release, now I didn't write a note on this, so it might be a little bit off on the information, but they had like a little program for like veterans that were getting out of prison that needed help like getting back to normal life kind of thing, and she met a man. Another chocolate man.
A good man this time.
A good man so far this time. I mean, it
love
was only
love.
22. So, we love. So, she has since met him. They've been dating for a good long time, and she said flat out, I am waiting a long time before I marry anyone again. And her daughter, Shantina, has gone out and made visits. I think she
I was
might...
gonna ask about the kids.
I think she might still be in California. I can't recall. I'm not sure personally what John's situation is. I do know that both of her kids did end up in the military at one point.
That's kind of fitting. I could see
Yeah.
They both did their little tours. Shantina's got kids now.
that. Oh, little baby Shanty.
Yeah, she brings the kids over to visit. And to this day, Sally does want to appeal the sentencing that she received. She does feel that she should have received a lesser sentence,
I
especially
think-
with all the
I think
information that came out about the abuse.
That is going to be a lot easier for her to probably do because they can look back at how the trial itself was handled and be like, this was a lot of victim blaming and all of that kind of stuff, and all these
other
studies that have
cases
come out.
that have changed
Yeah.
now from like
I'm
West Memphis
on the
3
fence
and-
about it. I mean, I do feel like she was a victim in this case, but I
That
can't
second shot,
I
it's
can't
that
deny
second
that
shot.
that second shot didn't screw everything up.
Yeah.
If she had just
Agreed.
left, it would have been
I still don't think
it
she
would
got a
have
fair
been
trial,
a
though.
manslaughter at best. I do feel like the DA was very, very bullheaded about it, but it was a different time.
It was such a tough case too because of that second shot. Like, you can't deny that there wasn't abuse. It's like there was abuse, but it's always tricky when there's evidence of both people being abusive.
Yep, the mutual.
But it's like it doesn't cancel each other out. It just makes it so complicated for anyone to try to charge because they're like, okay, well, we know that he was hurting you, but you were also kind of like not being a good person.
You both could have removed
You
the
both-
situation.
yeah.
You both antagonized it instead.
But they
so.
both were kind of like, well, I mean, I guess right not as much because he did have that other woman, but like you got to think like Sally thought like, this is my man, like he is the one, and then for him just to disrespect
she thought this
her,
is my world, yeah.
So then that was,
And it was
like,
just
to her that's another like
it was
another abuse
it was
towards her.
disrespect from the beginning though, and they were together for a fair amount of time. It was 8 years between their wedding and when he died.
And that's why I disagree with the DA. That she was a battered woman.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you
No,
don't
without
have
a
that
doubt.
abuse from day one with her background. Like, she was a battered woman. But still, that
Yeah.
second shot does change.
It definitely
It'd be
changes
different.
perspective.
It'd be different if it was like another shot to the abdomen. So if like, hey, you're still coming at me, I'm gonna
Yeah.
do another shot.
But the forensics proving
Right.
the projectile,
If
that
she
he
had
was
just
laying
taken the butt
down.
of the shotgun and just bashed him in the nose with it one time real quick, I would have accepted that.
Yeah, because then you're like, okay, he clearly came after her again after the first shot. Like,
it's just so sad. She had the bags packed, and she had a plan, and it's just that's what my mind keeps thinking. Like, why shouldn't she just after that first shot get the kids, get those bags,
kids go grab your bags, let's go.
You don't even call the cops in the car. Like, obviously you can't flee a murder, but
it's also the fact that
not to victim blame.
She did call the cops.
She did, and she admitted it to it immediately.
I did this.
She knew she
was very straightforward,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that shows to where that second shot might have just been a
panic.
I'm fucking panicking. All your military training can just go out the window
in certain situations. With PTSD, even more likely.
He could have been on the ground, and she could have been standing over him, and he could have actually went, lunged, and she panicked and just,
who knows?
And that could explain why it wasn't such a dead-on shot. Because if you're just
very possible.
That's kind of what I think happened, is that he probably, was on the floor, probably lost consciousness a little bit, and then came to and was just like, hey.
Scared.
Not to mention the fact that with all the training that she had, I mean, she did say in the documentary, and I quote, "If I wanted to kill him, I wouldn't have gotten caught."
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. And that's why I believe she was a battered woman. It wasn't planned out. I don't think she wanted to.
I think if she wanted him to die in that instant, she would have lifted that barrel that 2-3 more inches to get him in the head.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was just trying to get away.
And she also didn't want to be caught for it. I'm sure she could have convinced one of her little wrestling video buddies to do it for her.
I mean, realistically, yes, but that would have been a whole different nightmare and a whole different episode of this podcast. That is for sure. So you guys are going to have to let us know, how does this rate on the doozy scale?
I still
1 to 5.
Those doozy koozies.
The doozy koozies. I can 3D print us some koozies.
Oh.
Doozy koozies. I do actually have some material that would work well for sewing koozies, though. Anyhow. Let us know how it is, 1 to 5 on the doozy scale down below. And additionally, I'm going to put a question down there of, are you on Team Sally or Team Ray?
Yes, because this one...
And why? I want to know why. I want to know your opinion. I want to know what stuck with you on this one, because I researched this for a long time, and I managed to squeeze 9 pages of notes front and back into 6 pages of notes.
9
barely.
Beautiful pages of notes.
They are beautiful. Thank you. I'm so proud of this. It took me 3 days just to rewrite them.
A lot of my notes are 6 pages because I space my shit out because I have to make little annotations and stuff like that.
Little notes to your notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I go off on a train wreck.
I think this has been a fun one. I think this has been a different one. I appreciate the frog, Faith, coming to join us. She's gonna be joining us in the future. She's actually possibly planning on maybe doing a guest host with a story of her own, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And we will see you guys next week Monday for the matinee. Bye.
Bye.